new report from an independent investigation finds zero evidence that federal agents were involved in inciting the January 6th insurrection. The report undercutting now years of baseless claims spread by far-right political figures attempting to tie the FBI and the deadly attack.
Remember, MAGA shifted blame to Antifa, to Nancy Pelosi, to Capitol Police, and to the FBI of somehow being responsible for attacking the Capitol on January 6th in order to absolve Donald Trump and his foot soldiers of the insurrection? Well, now that an independent watchdog probe uncovered no evidence that federal agents were involved in inciting the violence, MAGA Republicans don't want to let the useful conspiracies go.
This investigation has been 4 years in the making, and the Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, for the Justice Department, really looked and tried to drill down on the FBI's use of confidential informants leading up to and also on January 6th. Now, it's no secret, we've covered in court proceedings, that there were confidential informants for the FBI on the ground among the crowd. But this report kind of sheds light on why that was the case. And what we've learned in terms of numbers is there was only 26 confidential human sources among the crowd that were in Washington that day. Now, 3 of those who actually entered the Capitol, this report found, were actually assigned by a field office with tracking a specific domestic terrorism suspect in a case that the FBI was pursuing at the time. There were a total of 4 of those informants who allegedly entered the Capitol. But this report also makes clear that not a single paid undercover FBI employee was present in D.C. on January 6th, not just at the riot, but at any of the protests that were planned that day. And this refutes, Kara, what we've obviously heard from a lot of people on the far right, including people like Steve Bannon, who have said that this was a Fedsurrection, in their words, a federally, funded and promoted riot where people who were part of the deep state were among that crowd cheering people on.
26 confidential human sources in the crowd of thousands of angry Trump supporters whipped up into a frenzy after being told that they'll lose their country if they don't go and fight. And 3 of them were there because their field offices sent them to track a specific domestic terrorist that they had their eyes on. All those details had to be ignored in order for prominent MAGA representatives to get ahead of the story to spin it. Vice President-elect J.D. Vance posted, "For those keeping score at home, this was labeled a dangerous conspiracy theory months ago." And oddly, it's still a dangerous conspiracy theory, considering the fact that the 3 that were sent there were there to monitor that known terrorist, which Trump's Republican Party blew off as impossible years ago, despite multiple studies showing the majority of the country's terrorists are domestic right-wingers. Vance knew supporters wouldn't find any usefulness in law enforcement keeping tabs on those known terrorists, so the presence of those 3 is just tossed aside. Well, then Elon Musk chimed in to discredit full context by posting "legacy media lies." He posted that just in case anyone decided to read, or even worse, take in information that wasn't given to them by MAGA or Fox News and maybe even Newsmax. But still, even after winning this past election, the debunked belief that Trump didn't blatantly and openly attempt to steal the 2020 election and then incite his followers to violently attack the Capitol to halt that transfer of power is one of the most important pillars of the MAGA's legitimacy. They need followers to continue to not trust investigations or reports that don't support the lies that Trump has told them. Because if they have any doubt, they fear MAGA will no longer support their upcoming plans for ignoring the rights of Americans and also using federal power to attack political opponents and media figures.
Said members of Congress who served on the January 6th committee should be in jail.
And Cheney was behind it. And so was Benny Thompson and everybody on that committee. For what they did, honestly, they should go to jail.
So you think Liz Cheney should go to jail?
For what they did.
Everyone on the committee, you think?
I think everybody anybody that voted in favor.
Are you going to direct your FBI director and your attorney general to send them to jail?
No, not at all.
You can't exact revenge on the people that exposed your traitorous actions if you don't keep the conspiracy theories about that day alive. And you also can't push the narrative that people like Kash Patel, who promised to turn the Justice Department into Trump's personal vendetta agency, are on the up and up if you don't continue to claim that those 23 confidential human informants, not employees of the FBI, were responsible for thousands of people to attack sitting members of Congress. That they convinced them all to call for the murder of Mike Pence, and not the guy that condoned their chance to hang him.
He's going to carry this out. I don't think that's a surprise because he's been repeating it for months now. But just in the face of him saying that people like you, members of the January 6th investigative committee, belong in jail, I mean, it's a pretty striking split screen.
Yeah, I mean, look, as I've said, is, fine, whatever. If you got to make up charges, I was in the legislative branch. We were investigating as per the request from Congress to do that. We obviously came up with answers that embarrassed Trump. He was embarrassed by it. It showed that he was completely complicit for 187 minutes while violence happened. He frankly wanted his vice president to had to have violence against him, and that was embarrassing for the president. Sorry to embarrass you, Donald, but that's what we were tasked with, was the truth. And history books will record this as the truth. You want to threaten to throw us in jail for that? It just shows how small of a person you really are. I'm not intimidated. The person that intimidates me the least of anybody in this country is Donald Trump.
It also sadly confirms that although most of the country has conveniently forgotten, Trump's former chief of staff and solid Republican, General John Kelly, was right when he called him a fascist. He's currently doing media tours to advocate for the FBI to do his bidding and throw January 6th committee members in jail. So no one else has to call him a fascist. He's calling himself a fascist by pursuing this fascist agenda.
Trump said in an interview published with Time magazine yesterday that one of his first acts in office will be to pardon those accused or convicted of storming the Capitol on January 6th, 2021. You have said in the past that peaceful protesters had a right to be there, but back in 2022, you said this about those prosecuted for crimes on January 6th.
There were people, on the other hand, who broke into the Capitol, who were violent, who attacked Capitol police officers, and they should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And the FBI has arrested hundreds of them, as they should, and they should be held to a very high standard in the court of law.
So given what you said about violent protesters being prosecuted, would you be okay if Trump issued a blanket pardon on the January 6th rioters?
Yeah, Manu, I've never heard President Trump talk about offering a blanket pardon to those who were violent or who did things on January 6th of a violent nature against Capitol police officers or damaged the United States Capitol. I think President Trump is talking about those who were there that day, who were there showing their support for him, not those who committed violent acts.
So you would oppose that?
I reject the notion that I don't know that I've never heard him talk about pardoning those people.